I do want to bring in here Richard Gordon, political analyst and host of Unconventional Times, the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And first off, talking about the race for mayor, that is one that is being watched so closely there, not just locally, but we're talking across the country and across the world. Why is it that so many people are paying close attention to this when maybe they didn't pay close attention to the other races for mayor in New York City?
Sure. Josh, if you don't mind, before I answer that, can I just say I was shocked and sorry to hear about the death of Dick Cheney. And I've gotten to know Liz Cheney a little bit. We serve on a board together, and I just wish Liz and her family all the best. Sorry to hear of the loss. As far as Zohran Mamdani goes, he's a phenomena. I mean, I think the reason people are reacting the way they are is because it goes way beyond politics. And I think in my lifetime, I could think of two examples. One is he, and the other is Barack Obama, where it truly became a movement. I mean, Donald Trump became a movement, I think, after he was elected president. But I think the reason people are reacting the way they are to Mamdani is the youth, the excitement, the optimism, the sense of hope. It's interesting because there's a separation between reality and what he's saying, and people seem to recognize that, and they're okay with it. People understand. He has no control over the buses, but he's still talking about free buses. He has no control over keeping prices low, but he still talks about it, and people are reacting to it. And I think the reason it is getting national and worldwide attention is because it is showing a massive shift in the electorate and a new type of electorate is developing. This is what I learned when he won the primary, that there is a new electorate out there that's completely different than the electorates of their parents, for example. And they're showing a sense of, we want someone who's going to promise us and try is the key word, to lead us to a better place. That's what they're voting for today.
When you look at independent Andrew Cuomo, of course, running as a Democrat, and he did lose the Democratic primary to Zohran Mamdani. You also have Republican Curtis Sliwa. One question I want to ask, is there any chance that Cuomo or Sliwa does win this race, or is it really Mamdani definitely?
Well, I don't see any path to victory for Mr. Sliwa. For Governor Cuomo, I think there is a path to victory. It would be shocking at this point. The polls would have to be all wrong. We've seen that before. But look, there were very few people who voted in the Democratic primary a few months ago that elected Mr. Mamdani over Mr. Cuomo. So very few people voted. If there is a massive turnout in certain parts of New York, Queens, Staten Island, for example, two of the boroughs, there is a possibility that Governor Cuomo could put it together. Going back to what I said before, there is a tectonic shift going on, right? In New York City, a lot of the old constituents are no longer there. The constituents that Democrats like Governor Cuomo relied on in the past, Jews, Italians, blacks, etc., that coalition is breaking apart partially as people get older and die or move away. And there's a much younger population growing in New York, heavily Hispanic, heavily Indian or subcontinent. There's a change in demographics in New York. There's a change in generations in New York. This election is electrifying that. This election is pointing directly at that. Could Andrew Cuomo win this election? Yeah, 100%. It is possible. The polls would have to be wrong, and he'd have to put together a coalition that we haven't seen yet. His odds are long, but it is most definitely possible. Curtis Sliwa, I don't see that at all.
And this is actually a post just coming in here from Andrew Cuomo. We've seen all of the different candidates kind of posting throughout the morning. They've been doing these different events over the last several days and really over the last several weeks, but definitely picking up over the last 24 to 48 hours. Andrew Cuomo saying polls are open in NYC. I am asking for your vote. A vote for experience to make change, a vote for public safety, and a vote for economic opportunity. New York City is the greatest city on earth. Let's make her shine again together. Find your polling place here. So if you do want to find your polling place, that's one location you can go to. That is Andrew Cuomo's page on X. One thing that's
Josh, if you don't mind, can I just make a comment about that?
Yeah.
A vote for experience. I find that fascinating, and I think that's a word experience we're going to look back on this election and talk about a lot. When I talk to people about who they're voting for in New York, it's fascinating that experience doesn't seem to matter to a lot of people. When you put together the experience of Andrew Cuomo, his many years in politics, his 3 terms as governor, attorney general, secretary of HUD, all this, he built the Second Avenue subway, he did LaGuardia, he did the Moynihan Center. You look at this massive experience, and then you compare it to Mr. Mamdani, who's been in public life for what, 4 years, has never passed anything. People don't care anymore. They're almost saying, to heck with the experience. We want to go in a different direction. And I think it's fascinating that Governor Cuomo, even this morning, is talking about experience. I'm finding the electorate is saying, I don't care about experience. I want a real change here. And that's what this election's about. It is change versus experience. I think change has got the upper hand.
When we go kind of on that same topic here, one thing that stood out to me that I wanted to ask you about, President Trump put out that statement last night on Truth Social. Now, he didn't really endorse Cuomo, but he kind of did, because he said, don't vote for Sliwa, don't vote for Mamdani, vote for Cuomo. And the thing that stood out to me is he said a vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani. So what do you make of that?
Well, it's always hard to know with the president when he says something and what he's really trying to accomplish here. I think on one hand, Donald Trump's a New Yorker, and I think he's looking at the election. He's known Andrew Cuomo and his father, Governor Mario Cuomo, for decades. And I think on one level it was just an honest expression of, I think Andrew would be a better governor, excuse me, a better mayor. On the other hand, you gotta wonder, because Mondami would clearly be the poster boy for the Republicans in beating up on Democrats for years to come as this Democratic socialist. And I think on one hand, it's playful, because I think he knows Mondami is going to win and he's put his stake in the ground. But two, I think as a New Yorker, I think the president is saying, you know what? Sliwa cannot possibly win. Andrew Cuomo, I might not like him a lot, but he'd be a decent mayor. I could work with him. I think that's what the president's trying to say.
But not really technically an endorsement, I guess, when you do look at it from every angle here. What I want to do is pop this up here on your screen. This is actually a post from Fox 5 New York. It says officials say it's the highest turnout for a non-presidential election year in city history and 4 times higher than the early vote count during the 2021 mayoral race. We know from the officials there in the city with the election board that essentially about 735,000 people came out during early voting. They expect the numbers will be high once again today. And what you're looking at here is a live look inside one of the polling sites. Why do you think we have seen such immense attention as far as the early voting numbers and the fact that so many people are still going to vote today? What does that tell us, if anything?
Well, I think it tells us a lot. First of all, 2021 was one of the all-time most boring races for mayor in New York, and very few people voted. Voting in New York has gone down dramatically over the last number of years. But what it tells us on the upside, on the positive side, is people are turned on. People are excited. You have 2 things going on in New York. At the same time, a very positive thing, a very negative thing. The positive side is people are excited. They're charged up. They want to vote. My big question today is what's going to be longer, the lines at TSA or the lines to vote for mayor of New York? I think both are going to be huge. So I think that people are excited. They want to vote. They're sending a message today. I'm expecting a massive turnout. On the negative side, there are a lot of people who are very nervous, extraordinarily nervous about, here's a word no one ever used in this election, Assemblyman Mondami. It's been interesting that his title has never been used at all, ever, in this election, which I find obviously calculated, but interesting. There are a lot of people who are very, very scared. Business people, ethnic groups who are very nervous about him. They're going to turn out in droves also. And it's going to be a battle of which group turns out more. Young people tend not to turn out. they're turning out now. The early vote was historic. I mean, broke all records. And I think you're going to see massive lines today. I think they're going to end up holding the voting booths open past 9 o'clock because there are going to be people online. I think this is going to go very late, and it's going to be a historic day.
That was going to be my next question, leads right into it, because do you think we're going to have an answer tonight? The polls close at 9 p.m. Eastern time, which is fairly late. But as you said, if folks are in line, they can still vote. So it could close even later. They could keep them open. Will we have an answer tonight? Could it be hours, days? Do we have any idea?
I think if the polls are correct, you know, they could stay open till 9. They're going to stay open later. I would not be surprised if they stay open till 10 or 11. Meaning, if you're online, you could stay online. You can't join the line after 9. But I have a feeling once they start releasing numbers, I have a feeling that the judgment of the people is going to be known pretty quickly. That would be my guess. I mean, unless the polls are really off, which they may be. We've had a lot of trouble with polling over the last number of cycles. But if the polls are where we think they are, we will have a winner tonight. It may be later than we think, maybe early in the morning, but I would be surprised if New Yorkers don't wake up tomorrow morning and know who their mayor is.
And right here, once again, we do have this live look. This is at one of the polling sites in New York. That is actually, it looks like the polling place or a polling place on the Upper West Side. Now, we also have this one that's coming in, and this is where, in a matter of moments, we should actually see Zohran Mamdani coming in to vote in New York City. Not sure if he's going to make any comments. I imagine folks there are going to try to ask him some questions, but we'll keep an eye on this and bring you those live images as we do get them here. All right, so we've talked a lot about New York City, but it's important to note that there are some other big races that are going to be getting underway here, and one of them is over in New Jersey. I want to pop this up on your screen just in case you're not too familiar with the candidates there, but we do have Democrat Mikie Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli going head to head here. The polls telling us it may not even be close. So what do you make of this race and the importance of it?
Well, I disagree that I mean, I'd be surprised here if it's not close. I think it's going to be very close. New Jersey is a really interesting state. People don't get New Jersey. They don't understand it. On the presidential level, it almost always votes Democratic. But on the gubernatorial level, historically, it likes to vote Republican. And there have been a number of Republican governors of the state of New Jersey. And until Phil Murphy was reelected this time, he was the first governor, Democratic governor reelected since 1981. Nope, since 1977. He was the first Democratic reelected since 1977. So it's hard for Democrats to win too many terms. This would be the third term in a row for a Democrat. That hasn't happened in decades, literally. Look, it's been a bizarre campaign. I don't know what else you could call it. There are serious issues here in New Jersey, and both candidates seem to be more interested in attacking the other for things they may or may not have done decades ago. I think the race is going to be relatively close. I think it's highly significant as we go into the midterms in 26. You know, governors have a lot of power, and especially the way the administration has been working and the power given to the state government. It is extraordinarily important who the governor is of your state, whether it's New Jersey, Virginia, or elsewhere. I expect this one to go later into the night. We don't know yet, of course. I've noticed that Mikie Sherrill's numbers have started to tick up and her lead has expanded, but I still expect it to be close. If your next question is how do I think the election turns, I think, when you look at the Hispanic vote in New Jersey, that's really fascinating. And that may be the decider in this election, because there's been a major shift in New Jersey as far as where Hispanic voters go. In 2020, overwhelmingly for Joe Biden. I think he carried the state by a large amount. Donald Trump lost it in 24, but I think he lost it by about 6. It's a lot closer. And it really depends on how the Hispanic vote breaks. That's something really to watch.
Right now, you're looking at this live look out of Montclair, New Jersey. That's where Mikie Sherrill is expected to vote here in just a few minutes. Again, we keep saying it, but we're likely to get remarks from all of these candidates as reporters chase after them. Sometimes, they'll walk up to the reporters and the microphones. Other times you see the photographer running and trying to get a question in. But we'll bring you all those comments as soon as we get them. Again, a live look over in New Jersey. Another big race that we're tracking here is the Virginia governor race. And again, it's a polling situation where you can look at the polls and say, it's close, it could be close, but you never really know until you see all the votes. What are you thinking here as we see Democrat Abigail Spanberger versus Republican current Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears?
Well, I think everything is going in Spanberger's way. I mean, I think all the dynamics are going in her way. She has a sizable lead in the polls. Obviously, we don't know until people actually turn up, but she's a sizable lead in the polls. Virginia is almost the opposite of New Jersey in the sense of it almost always elects Democratic governors, and it always elects, except for once, elects the governor of the other party than the president. So, when Donald Trump won in 2024, it was in some ways the worst thing for Earle-Sears because the lieutenant governor, because almost always in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the opposite party wins. So I think Spanberger has all the advantages going into tonight. We'll see how that turns out. They close relatively early. They'll close before New Jersey. I think that will be the first election called, and I expect that relatively early tonight.
My last question for you here. As we watch kind of all of this play out, what do these elections tell us about what to expect next year in the midterms and maybe even in 2028? Do they tell us anything based on the outcome?
Well, first, I'm going to quote a dear friend of mine, Larry Sabato, who said the other day that between now and Sunday, this coming Sunday, we get to talk about that question, and after Sunday, let's switch and then talk about what's actually happening. Look, I think it's going to say a lot, and I think we need to look at who's voting and who's not voting. I mentioned Hispanics in New Jersey before. In 2020, Passaic County, county in northern New Jersey, went heavily for Joe Biden. In 2024. Guess what? They went for Donald Trump. Where are they going tonight? And if they go for Jack Ciattarelli, I think we're seeing a realignment about Hispanic voters. That is a critical voting bloc across the country. Does it mean something in other states? I think we're going to have to closely watch that. I think it's truly a bellwether for 26. In some ways, I think you're seeing tremendous dissatisfaction with the president, and I think that is showing up across the country. We're seeing it in polling. Depending on what happens tonight in Virginia, the layoffs, the government closing is a big issue in a state like Virginia. And I think as far as 28 goes, a lot of these candidates have been out and about. People who are going to run in 28, New Jersey has been flooded with potential 28 candidates who are showing themselves off. So this is the first salvo in this. And it's still another point that's interesting. They're still running against Donald Trump. Democrats are continuing to run against Donald Trump. It is an issue that cuts. It is an issue that moves numbers. So I'm looking tonight at the Hispanic vote, see how that goes, and I'm looking to see how big some of these victories are, because I think that will presage what might happen in 26 and a launching pad for people in 28.
Any other races that you are watching here? We've talked about the big ones, New York City mayor, governor's races there in Virginia and New Jersey. What else are you keeping an eye on as the day kind of progresses?
Well, as the night progresses, because it's California, I'm keeping an eye on Proposition 50. As your viewers may know, California law says that redistricting is done by a nonpartisan panel that makes the decision on where the lines should be. Because of what Texas did, what Governor Abbott did in Texas, was changing the congressional lines in order to get more Republicans into the House. Governor Newsom in Texas has retaliated with Proposition 50, which is going to take the power away from this nonpartisan board and give it back to the governor to draw the lines for congressional seats. It's an attempt to get 5 seats more for the Democrats after the Republicans got 5 more in Texas. I'm watching that really closely. Look, we don't redistrict in between 10 years. We do this every 10 years after the census. This is really strange and really odd. A bunch of states have jumped in, Missouri, Indiana, some other places, to try to get more Republican seats. This is an attempt by the Democrats. If this wins, and it is going to win massively. I mean, this one's not going to be close, right? I mean, it is California, so we're going to get the news pretty late, but this is going to get 65% of the vote. This is massively popular. People are really upset that Republicans are trying to change the rules. And so you're going to see a backlash at this. What does this do for other states going forward? Are they going to try to change the rules? And how's the public going to react? Changing the rules in the middle of the game to make your side win, I think is going to annoy a lot of people. I know a lot of Democrats are mad at what the Republicans did, but they're also mad at what the Democrats are doing. So it's this tug of war, I think, between the two sides of how do you retaliate and how do you make things even. We're going to see how that turns out tonight. I think we kind of know, but the most interesting thing is, what do other states do after California passes this law? Do they follow suit, or do they just sit pat and see what happens?
And
So that's an interesting thing we need to watch.
oh, for sure. And that's another big race. And of course, all eyes will be on that. You do have this post here from Governor Gavin Newsom saying our vote is in. Now it's your turn, California, and LFG, which would be bleep if I had a bleep button. But all right, thank you so much for taking the time to.
That took me a minute to figure out. I had to translate that one. I think I know what the governor was saying.
I was going to say, I think I just translated it for everyone without translating it. So
Exactly. Well, let's go. I think we could say that.
There you go. All right, Richard Gordon, political analyst, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and breaking it all down. I would say, is there anything we missed? We covered a lot, but anything here you want to add before I let you go?
No, I think people should understand there are also a lot of very important down ballot races, and they need to vote all the way down. I think the thing I really want to say is, whether you're voting for Democrat or Republican or Independent or however you vote, just go vote. The most important thing people could do today is vote and show that our democracy is strong and that voting really matters. So there's a lot of down ballot races. Don't just vote for the top of the ticket. These are people who are going to serve you for the next 2 or 4 years, and it's important because it's also a proving ground and a ground for people to come up through the system. So vote all the way down the ballot. Go vote.
All right, Richard Gordon there, political analyst. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and breaking it all down. We definitely appreciate it.
Josh, thank you very much. Pleasure being on.